Hello.
Hey. I brought my peeps tonight, so I'm going to have them just introduce themselves. Damien, you start us off.
Damien Whelan, Dean, Middlebrook.
Janet Nobles, Stride Instructional Leader at Middlebrook.
Polly Metz, Special Ed Teacher at Middlebrook.
Mike McLaughlin, Writing Workshop Teacher at Middlebrook.
And I'm Lauren. I work with them. So Janet's going to start us off, I think.
So talking about the Middlebrook schedule. As you know, this is something we've been talking about for years. I can look at Maria and say I remember 4 years ago when we sat at a scheduling committee for at least 4 months, working so hard, looking at every schedule in our DIRG and what can we relate to and how can we get an intervention block in our school. And we worked and worked and ended up saying, we can't. This isn't going to work. We can't make it work. So we went a couple of other years and tried to make things go as they were. And last year, Kevin came down and said, let's try to get a schedule committee going again. We got to figure out, we got to get some more math time in our schedule this time. And so we started meeting weekly with Kevin. And we looked at even further out throughout the state and the country at schedules and what will work for us. And again, struggling, grappling with it, not having any real outcome at the end that was tangible. So this year, Lauren came to me and some others and said, there's this staff development happening with NELMS, and it's about finding the schedule that fits your program and meets the needs of your school. Do you want to go? And we're like, yeah. So a group of us went, a small group. There was six of us there, and had a great experience working with these superintendent and assistant superintendent from Massachusetts. And they had a really great way of having us really focus on, your schedule shows the priorities of your school. Let's really look at this. And we plowed through all this stuff, and we came back feeling like we need to change our schedule. It doesn't reflect where we are anymore. We were passionate about it. So we came to the staff and shared all of that. And now we are at the point where we've shared with the staff, we've brought the staff together, we've come up with, yet again, but new and improved, a schedule working group that has a large amount of the staff in it. And we have decided that we are going to conquer this problem. We're going to solve our scheduling issues. So that's where we are right now.
Thank you, Jim.
Sure.
So as you know, math instruction has been a hot topic in district, particularly at the secondary level, for a number of years. At board meetings such as this, we've also heard discussions and statements about inadequate instructional time at Middlebrook. So that has also been reinforced by some experts such as Steve Leinwand, and really looking to increase instructional time to a goal of 1 hour. And this idea of 1 hour primarily came from the math curriculum committee that was underway 2 years ago and kind of came to culmination this past school year.
So really, the Middlebrook faculty are the experts in young adolescent instruction, and we want to make sure that their voices are heard throughout. We had spent several weeks having a lot of whole group discussion. It's a really charged issue, as you can imagine, right? These are people who their life work is invested in teaching Wilton's children at middle school level. So it is emotionally charged also because if you take time from one program and give it to another, ultimately it does impact the professional staffing levels at the school. And so we just want to take a moment before we shift to talking about the smaller working group that we've now formed to really sing the praises of the staff for the way that they really dug into that conversation. They asked wonderful questions. They came forward with all kinds of things that we really need to consider. And we're not looking to adopt some other town's schedule. We're looking to build a schedule that really embraces and works on behalf of our values and what we know is best for Wilton children. And so we just really want to sing the praises of that work, the whole staff, and to reiterate the fact that keeping the staff engaged in the conversation is going to be the work throughout the rest of this process. We're dedicating a great deal of the remaining staff time of the year for the working group that you're going to hear more about to come back and interface with the whole staff and make sure that we're using all of the think tank that we have there.
So we thought we'd share the next portion of the presentation, just some of the factors driving the discussion. as you know, the conversation started last year, we're focused primarily around math and the quantity of math instruction. Through some of our work with NELMS and just internal conversations, we've expanded beyond the notion of just it being a math conversation. We look to really expand that to all of our subject areas, but particularly focusing on the 4 core academics: ELA, math, social studies, and science.
And over the past few years, a lot of our academic areas have had a revision of their curriculum. So there's a big learning curve with all of that, and through that, a lot of the interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary projects the team were working on kind of fell on the to the wayside. Also, a lot of the curriculum is more student-centered learning, and it's more of a set program. So through all of this, we're trying to really work on, there's a huge passion in our school for transdisciplinary work, and we know that we can achieve that more if we focus on both the core content and getting our teachers to work together to come up with some great ideas that kids can work towards in the transdisciplinary project-based learning. This kind of work we have to think about 2 things, not only the student time that they can collaborate, but also teacher time, so that we have time to engage in our collaborative preparation.
While the main area of concern for us isn't necessarily the declining enrollment, we do want to take that into account while we are setting up structures. We want to make sure that those structures are malleable and that they can change with us as we decline in enrollment moving forward.
So another thing we're really committed to is remediating our problematic achievement gap. Our performance in our data shows that we are not adequately growing our high-need students. High-need students being students with IEPs, students who are English language learners, and students who qualify for free and reduced lunch. And we also want to lump in with that group, we want to really help support our students in intervention and AIM programs. Our current schedule has some constraints that limit the way we can flexibly deploy the great resources we have at Middlebrook. And we want to create a fully responsive, personalized program to reach all of our varied learners. So our aim with this scheduler working group is to have a plan that grows all of our students and helps to eliminate that opportunity gap for learning for some of our students in the higher needs populations.
So after having several group discussions, large staff discussions, we came to the conclusion that we weren't going to solve this problem with all 101 certified staff members in the room having the discussion at the same time. So we decided to have some people step up and volunteer. So we decided to have some people step up and volunteer, and we were very pleased with the diversity of different type of teachers and people who stepped forward to join our committee and have this conversation moving forward.
I love the diversity of our presenters tonight in terms of where they are in their career. I think we're really trying to get a cross-section.
And so one of our first areas of business was to decide what our mission statement was, to ground ourselves in what we believed and what our fundamental values were. So I'll give you all a moment to read our mission statement at this time.
So in the past, we've really focused on tweaking schedules. The committee that met 4 years ago was just trying to massage minutes here and there. What we're really moving into is kind of starting with a clean slate and looking at how we allocate all our time across all of our subject areas. And to guide us in that endeavor, we looked at some guideposts such as the mission statement, Middlebrook mission statement, philosophy, the Middlebrook theory of action, and obviously the portrait of the graduate has also been a key element. And then we've also brought in some additional supports, our philosophies for each program. We've also had support from our ILs, our curriculum coordinators. Chuck has been in to visit, and Kevin was always at hand as well. And then finally, another interesting piece is just taking a look at what our Durgay counterparts are doing, and even beyond that, really getting feedback from our fellow tri-state members.
So you've seen our team members, and our first goal as we started meeting, we're meeting every Tuesday in case you ever want to stop by. We meet every Tuesday afternoon for an hour and a half, and our first job was to come up with that mission that you've just read. From there, after learning why we were moving forward, we created our norms and our mission and our plan for what we were going to do. So we want to share that plan with you tonight. So I want to let you know what we already have done and what we plan to do over the next few months. So far, we have brought in the specialists in our district on all of the subject areas. So we had a meeting where we met with humanities and STEM coordinators and with Chuck, who came to share with us the best practices of ELA, math, science and social studies, and world language, looking at what's the ideal, what do we need to have in terms of minutes, in terms of commitment, in terms of how curriculum is changing, and all the things we're looking at to make sure that everyone on the committee is up to speed on all of those areas. The next meeting, we had the K-12 ILs from PE Health, Music and Art, as well as people representing all of our STRIDE classes, in addition to those, Family Consumer Science and iSTEM and Health that we talked about, Digital Citizenship, and Probability and Statistics, and talking about the curriculum of all those areas and what the optimal amount of minutes they are to have per class and sessions per year and all of those things. Everyone really had a chance to ask all the questions they had about those classes and what they pertain to. And the important thing, as we spent 2 meetings listening and speaking to all these people, is the diversity of the people on the committee is so important. We have administrators and teachers, we have parents, and making sure that the parents are as up to speed as we are on what's being offered, whether their child's a part of it or not. So that's what we've covered so far. Our next step is to focus on social emotional instruction and what the goals for the district are over the next few years and how that should be looked at from the point of the schedule from Middlebrook. Will that be incorporated in all classes in a specific class? How will those things be assessed and brought into the school? The next thing is to look at our subgroups in terms of our students who are in the AIM program, which is our additional instruction in math, our intervention for math and reading, our English language learners, special education, and free and reduced lunch, understanding the groups, those specific groups, and as Polly was talking about, what's limiting their growth and what can the schedule do to assist and help with making more success for those students. After we discuss that, we want to define what is the optimal program at Middlebrook. Here's what we have. What do we need? Do we need more? Do we tweak the time that we have? Rebuild what we currently have? What changes need to be made in order for us to really have the optimum amount of all the coursework that our kids need? And then discuss the structures of them. That comes next. And as we know, that's building the graphs and coming up with Lauren's Lego structures that take so much time and so much care to make. It's rough. And the pros and cons of all these different possibilities of schedules. And ultimately, we hope by May to be able to make a recommendation for the schedule we would like to use at Middlebrook. Not next year, but giving us that year to be ready to then start it the following year of 21-22.
So like Janet was alluding to, we really want to make sure that all of our Middlebrook stakeholders have a voice and that their voices are heard. And so yesterday we had a wonderful whole staff discussion, updating everyone just like we're updating you about what we're up to and what our plan is. And next week we're actually going to have some smaller group discussions at our staff meeting led by our scheduling working group members to field some questions, receive some feedback, and then bring that to the table at our next meeting as a group. We've also, like Janice said, collaborated with our district leaders and ILs, and they brought forward some really valuable information for us. And also, Lauren's done an excellent job gathering all the information from our Durg A and Tri-State middle school counterparts, and we're hoping to compare and also collaborate in a way that we can come up with our own solution that works the Wilton way. And we are also hoping to potentially work with the NELMS consultants, Mark Bronco and Chris Pollitt, who I've heard wonderful things about. And we have 4 PTA reps on our schedule working group. And in the future, we hope to solicit feedback from parents and students via surveys and potentially some focus group work.
That's where we are so far. Just those few things.
Questions?
Questions, comments?
You know,
Have your work cut out for you.
to think that
the request for additional math instructional time has driven this major examination of how we're doing what we're doing. Is like, okay, thought it was going to be simple. How do you just carve out a little more math time? But it's, I think it's worth it. I think it, and I'm pleased to see that you're giving attention across the board, not just to math, but to all the subject areas and all the student needs. I think it's great. Do all of the middle schools that you looked at operate on a teams structure?
It is absolutely the hallmark of the kind of program that we would compare ourselves to.
Okay, so most,
Yes.
well,
It
do
is
all
the
the middle
norm.
school, all the middle schools have a team structure in there?
I'm not aware of any, I don't think we've gotten any feedback from any school that is not teamed.
It's not teams, okay.
Correct.
'Cause I mean, that strikes me as being the middle school model. It
Sure.
should be.
And one of the things that we look at there is what's on the team,
Yeah.
right? So a 6-teacher team is actually a relatively unusual structure. So taking a look at how many teachers are on a team, so teaming can mean different things.
Yeah, okay, all right. And is that inhibiting or is it helping your work, the team structure? Or is it neutral? Work
I
neutral?
think,
Please.
if I may, I think, I don't think there's a teacher at Middlebrook that'll tell you that teaming isn't at the heart of everything we do.
Okay.
So I think everyone realizes there might be some changes with the team structure in some way, but that's the way we know our students, and that's the way students
Yeah.
feel. at
Oh,
home at
and I
Middlebrook.
agree.
Yeah.
I mean,
All of the
just-
experts in the field will say that developmentally, it's the right thing.
Yeah.
And it really does allow us to have wraparound care.
Yeah.
And particularly we do have a passion to get back to that transdisciplinary work in a really meaningful way, and the sort of the 2.0 version of that collaborative work across the team. And those connections are, for sure, easier to make when they're in a teamed environment.
Well, yeah, I think where you are is wonderful, and the process that you've undertaken is just great, and will lead to a really remarkable piece of work at the end. I'm sure it will. So,
Third time's the charm.
third time's the charm.
There's been more than 3.
Yeah, and thank you. It is
For some
not,
of us.
everyone has a vested interest in what they're doing, and they're passionate about it. So it's not an easy thing to bring all those disparate people together and have someone willing to give up a little of this for somebody else to get a little of that. It's not easy. And then you've got a broad spectrum of customers that you're trying to satisfy, so.
I would like to mention that one of the things that wasn't specifically mentioned tonight was one of the questions we are asking, because it would be just a real shame not to ask it, is when we look at our complement of courses, particularly within the stride area, we need to ask the question of, are there things that we're offering that don't align with our values and our vision? Which that side I find less pressing, honestly, than are there things that align with our values and our vision that we're not offering?
Yeah.
There's great joy in thinking, dreaming big, thinking in a really flexible way. But of course, anything that we add is, again, more time that has to come from something,
yeah.
right? And so I think Damien made the point, and even just that you saw the reaction to the word tweak, like we're really trying hard to start with the blank Etch-a-Sketch, in the sense that if we were going to just define the optimal program now, and not just trying to shimmy what we
Right.
have. And I think that it's really affirming how much of what we have we think really is wonderful.
Good.
So that doesn't mean everything is going to change. It just means that we really want to look at this with fresh eyes of, if we started with a blank slate today, what would we want for our children?
Are you going to do like sort of a trial, 2 or 3 weeks, maybe in May of 2021?
That was
To
such
try
an
it out.
appealing thought because the high school was able to do it, right?
Right.
So it has everything to do with what the structure is. So we've worked some models. Honestly, we worked some models just to make sure that there was even an option that was possible. Because we didn't want to go into this work and commit huge amounts and a lot of emotional energy into, and then come out and say, oh, we can't do it. Some of the models that we've looked at just as possibilities would do things like have a different number of teams. And so it would be very, very hard to run it just for a couple of weeks. I think that if there are things that we can test run along the way, I absolutely am in favor of that. And certainly we saw our colleagues do a great example of that. But I would be surprised if what we came out with would be easy to turnkey like that. I also think that a lot of the high school seniors were not there when they ran, like the
I don't
flexibility
think
is.
any of the seniors were
Right.
there.
They were
That too.
internships.
You know, so I think that I'm not sure that we'll
Could
have
do
the
an
same
eighth grade
flexibility.
internship and send them out.
To the high school.
So we're trying to think as flexibly as we can, including things like, do all 3 grade levels need to look the same? You know, are there developmental differences between 6th and 8th that would cause us to look at things differently? And we're trying to look at our colleagues in other districts and see what the scope of the learning should be for us.
And are you gonna be sending out notifications to parents as far as like surveys? I know you've mentioned that you're gonna be doing parent surveys. I've just heard some rumblings about people being concerned that there's too much time in math and not enough in stride, and, you know, when nobody knows anything about how they are, they always find like the worst, so.
I will tell you that trying to write a plan for this process has been a really interesting project. Like, there are many, many ways for people to say what they don't like about a plan. And to me, the best thing is to sort of let it follow an organic unfolding. So I'm not sure at exactly which point we will be ready. We will have things for parents to respond to. But absolutely, I would like to think that at 2 or 3 points, we will be soliciting some feedback from a body of parents. Now, some parts of that may be more like focus group, and some parts of it, I would like to have at least an opportunity for parents to weigh in by a thought exchange of some sort or a survey of some sort. But I think we would need to have some models to show before we could have really meaningful feedback.
Could you make sure everyone has this, all the parents have
For
this?
sure.
Yeah.
Yes,
I think that's reassuring,
yes,
that it's comprehensive and thoughtful and they can see the timeline.
yes.
My personal question about the timeline is, it's ambitious. Can we really do that?
It's super ambitious. So when we saw, honestly, the consultants had told us that in the time frame we were looking at, we could have had a new schedule for next year. And the fact of the matter is, we don't want to rush it. We want to, so the waiting for the additional year gives us the important time. And to me, the real push to have this settled by June is twofold. One is that this is emotionally taxing for the professionals involved, and that I think that people will have, the more certainty we can give people, I think will be a kindness to the professionals of Middlebrook. The more important side of that, I think, is that over the summer is really when we invest the time and really be thoughtful about the professional learning that people need during the course of a full academic year. I would really like for us to go into the summer and be able to do our curriculum work and our PD planning with the new schedule in mind, so that we make the best use of the learning in that interim year.
So your target is not for implementation until year after next?
Correct. Nothing structurally of any size. I will say, as of today, there's no planned change in the schedule structure. And if there is, it would be minor incidental tweaky things.
Okay.
Ruth, you had a question.
I was just going to say, as we worked through this, you had made 2 points that kind of struck me. One was that with a lot of the curriculum change that happened over the last couple of years, it was hard to incorporate the interdisciplinary opportunities. So I just think that it's important to be thoughtful as we move forward to make sure that we're not naive to think that we're not going to have other curriculum changes down the line, and to make sure that those types of opportunities and avenues and changes are workable within
Yes,
the new program as well.
sure.
And that really, I think, coming back to the schedule reflecting the priorities and having this for parents, and maybe also a greater understanding of kind of what those priorities are. Because we have a portrait of a graduate, and that's, for middle school, that's, still down the road for parents. And I don't know, thinking about like what a 13-year-old can do versus what an 18-year-old can do, kind of like maybe kind of honing in a little bit of like, what do we see our children leaving Middlebrook looking like out of this, out of this process a bit. So we can kind of see that these are the priorities for those 3 years, and the schedule now reflects being able to achieve those priorities.
I think that when we think about priorities, the amount of time in a schedule does not necessarily reflect really the the goal I think we have is to look at what are the outcomes that we need from that program. And one of the great pieces of information we have right now is how are we doing with our deliverables in each program with the time currently allotted. And that's a great guidepost for us, because really what we know is that everybody that we talk to wants more time. And every time we talk a lot about a program, we want to give it more time, right? Like, God, that's cool. The amount of things that our kids can do at Middlebrook are stellar, and they can spend twice as much time and continue learning. So one of the problems that we'll have is, trying to put 10 pounds of learning into a 5-pound bag. But so certainly I think that we can provide parents with resources. We can do a narrated version of this and send it out, and we'll do a tremendous amount of parent communication as we have things to communicate out. Right now, we had the PTA report this morning, and when the PTA reps were talking to me about what they were going to say, and it's the part that we're doing right now, while totally important, is not actually that exciting to report out on. Like, we're really learning the context of what's important about language arts instruction, and what do you need in order to do that well, and what's important about music instruction, and what do you need to be able to do that well. But we will definitely try to, transparency is our shtick. We will try to bring everybody along as much as possible, with the caveat that one of the reasons you can't do this with 101 people in the same room is because there's not going to be full consensus, and we know that. And so that's part of the transparency, is that ultimately some decisions are going to have to be made at administrative levels. And we just want to make them informed by all of the wisdom in the room.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do think this is reassuring to parents, and they understand that they don't have to be in the room on every single conversation, but just the fact that there is no model yet.
Yes.
There's no specifics yet.
Right.
There's a cross-section of people working on it, and here's a timeline.
Yes.
That's helpful to parents,
Yes.
so they don't get caught up in the rumor mill of, oh, did you hear? And gosh knows where that came from,
Yes.
but.
Yep, and at the end of the day, when people have questions, they can come forward and ask them, right? So the easiest thing is to send a question to me. I'm happy to have somebody else answer the question if that makes folks more comfortable. I can play just traffic cop with the questions, but we're very happy. Like, if people are hearing things and they'd like some clarification, we really welcome the conversation.
Yeah, and I think that that's a great idea. When you send this out to parents, just welcome them to ask the questions. I think you kind of hit it right. It's the rumor mill, right? It's the fear of the unknown.
Yep.
People don't know what's going on. People start talking. Just goes the wrong way.
3 out of our 4 parent representatives have children at the lower schools. So we certainly are, they're thinking with their, I'm going to have skin in the game experience as well.
And you have, she does, as you know, probably Tuesday is news day. Like, every week she's communicating everything with the parents, so that you have that avenue of,
Sure.
and your brown bag lunches, they're asking questions, right?
Sure. All right. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Good